around the world. And from CBS News headquarters in New York, this is the CBS Evening News with Dan Rather.
Good evening. In Poland tonight, the struggle to impose martial law and the struggle to resist it continue. And all indications are that at least some dissenters refuse to be silenced. In Warsaw tonight, where the government had said all was normal, there were clashes. And the Yugoslav news agency today reported resistance from a new quarter. It says private farmers, backbone of Poland's agriculture, have been withholding food deliveries since Sunday's martial law declaration. In London tonight, Tom Fenton continues to monitor the latest reports from Poland.
Warsaw Television tonight presented a picture of life in the capital returning to normal under martial law. Diplomatic sources presented a different picture, reporting that security forces beat back a crowd of several thousand persons who were singing hymns and patriotic songs outside a church yesterday in central Warsaw. Other reports indicated that workers throughout Poland may be starting a campaign of passive resistance, slowing down work and refusing to obey orders. Foreigners leaving Poland reported violent clashes in Silesia, where security forces have been using harsh tactics to break up strikes in the coal mines.
Early Wednesday morning at the Nowa Huta plant in Krakow, hundreds, perhaps thousands of Zomo militia and army people invaded the plant, led by 3 tanks, badly beat a number of students and workers, about 50. Many were injured very badly, although none were killed, and several hundred were arrested. And all the workers were told that if they did not return to work, they would be shot or imprisoned for a long period of time.
Did that seem to have any impact?
Another major trouble spot has been the Baltic port of Gdansk, which became the temporary headquarters for Solidarity earlier this week when the army seized power. The shipyard, where Solidarity was born last year, became the center of resistance to martial law. Resistance has continued even after the army took over the shipyard. The government admitted today that there are shortages in Warsaw of even those basic Polish commodities, bread and potatoes. Workers were told they could be ordered to work up to 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, to help save the floundering economy. All of this only a week before Christmas, while the army-run television provided a bit of cheer with pictures of happy children receiving sweaters from Santa at a factory party near Lutz. Sweaters will be needed this winter. More West European governments expressed disapproval today. West Germany's Chancellor Schmidt said he was deeply concerned. The Swedes said they were shocked. Austrian Chancellor Kreisky said the world was in the most dangerous situation since World War II. None of the governments proposed any action. East European diplomats said the Soviet Union is also watching Poland with concern, but would not exclude action of its own if the Polish army loses control of the situation. Tom Fenton, CBS News, London.
29 Solidarity Union members stranded outside Poland met in Zurich, Switzerland today. The union members in exile urged more political and economic pressure on Poland from the West and called for the admission of international observer teams to Poland. The State Department today called on the Polish government to permit Solidarity leader Lech Wałęsa to speak to his countrymen and the world. More than anyone else, it was Lech Wałęsa who had captured the imagination and raised the hopes of Poland. From Poland's bishops to youthful demonstrators on Warsaw streets last night, and now the State Department, the message has been the same. Let Wałęsa speak. But tonight, the Solidarity leader's whereabouts and fate remain unknown. Tonight we can present some words and picture of Wałęsa from an interview conducted in Gdansk 12 days ago. The extraordinary film we're about to show you was presented to us by French poet-songwriter Guy Béard, who, as he put it, offers it as a gift to the American television audience. David Culhane in New York has our report.
It was 1 week before martial law was imposed in Poland. He was at home with his wife and 6 children. His wife said that he was rarely home now and that he didn't have as much time to play with the children. They sang Christmas carols. and they sang Polish Catholic hymns like this one.
Maryjo Królowo Polski, jestem przy Tobie, Panie.
Mary, Queen of Poland, I am very near you, and I remember, and I am keeping watch.
Maryjo Królowo Polski, Maryjo Królowo Polski, jestem przy Tobie, pamiętam, jestem przy Tobie, pamiętam, czuła.
On the wall behind him was a picture of Pope John Paul, and Mary, the Mother of Christ, is portrayed on the button he always wears on his lapel. He told his French visitors, "I am a religious man, and that's why I always keep my hopes up, even in hopeless situations." There were gifts for the children, and he recalled the Polish Christmas custom. The parents would get up very early and fill the children's shoes with little presents. And this is what he said about life. The real art consists of falling, but above all, of being able to get up again. And he said, even if I created an ideal Poland made of gold, there could always be a disaster, so I need God. And about death, he said, you have to be ready, because you can be called at any moment, and I try to be ready so as not to be taken by surprise. David Culhane, CBS News, New York.
To help you send your warmest holiday greetings, the florists of FTD have created 2 new Holiday Glow bouquets. A twin candle bouquet perfect as a centerpiece. And for those other special places in your home, a single candle bouquet. And because they're from FTD, they'll fill the holidays with the joy of flowers.
FTD, helping you say it right. There's a fragrance that's here today, and they call it Jolly. A different fragrance that thinks your way, yeah, they call it Jolly. Kinda young, kinda now, Charlie. Kinda free, kinda wow, Charlie. Kind of fragrance that's gonna stay, and it's here now. Charlie.
And now for Christmas, very special Charlie gifts from Revlon.
The crisis in Poland occupied much of President Reagan's attention today, and he again studied what choices the United States may have to do anything about it. More on this from Leslie Stahl.
The situation in Poland is getting worse, said a White House spokesman. Imprisoned Solidarity members are not being given humanitarian treatment, and Lech Walesa is being held under de facto house arrest. In a 9:30 Oval Office meeting with AFL-CIO President Lane Kirkland, President Reagan called on the Polish government to release the prisoners.
We want to return to the negotiation stage, an end to martial law and the release from confinement of those people that have been so unjustly arrested, and an end to the violence.
Afterward, Kirkland said he agrees with the president's policy of suspending future food aid to Poland.
All assistance to Poland should be conditioned on the termination of martial law and the release of prisoners.
Do you see any hope for the future of Solidarity? Is it now apparent that they are going to be crushed as a result?
Solidarity is the people, and I think the spirit still lives in the people.
The president chaired a National Security Council meeting on Poland, his third in 2 weeks, while a top administration official told reporters that the U.S. is prepared to take decisive action if the Soviets invade. But he seemed to indicate that the administration is almost helpless in dealing with this current state of violence in Poland, that there are only a few options available and that their effectiveness is questionable. He left the impression that U.S. officials are frustrated and that 6 days into this crisis, the Reagan administration has not yet figured out how to deal with it. Leslie Stahl, CBS News, the White House.
The chief negotiator for an international group of banks said today it is rather unlikely that the group will allow Poland's communist government to further put off repaying its debts. Even before this week's crackdown, Poland was in financial trouble, but as Liz Trotter reports from London, that trouble is now a crisis.
The problem is borrowed money. Poland's total debt to banks and governments now stands at $27 billion. In order to pay the interest on part of this debt, Poland needs $350 million by the end of this month and has requested that sum. The problem is that according to reliable estimates, Poland's cash reserves only amount to between $100 and $200 million. Whether the Western banks will allow Poland to default on its huge debt is of critical concern to both politicians and bankers. Poland has borrowed $16 billion from banks throughout the world. Of that total, the United States, which is opposed to more lending, has the smallest portion with $1.6 billion in loans on the books. But the Europeans have a much bigger stake. $14.4 billion in bank loans to the Poles are outstanding. Poland's largest export is coal, and getting the miners back to work is at the heart of its economic predicament.
Coal makes up 20% of Polish hard currency exports, and it's the only area where significant increases can be made. And unless some measure of understanding with the coal miners is reached, it's very unlikely that the coal miners will be willing to undertake the extra work which is necessary to increase coal production.
Unconfirmed reports from Poland reaching the West say the Polish government has frozen all private bank accounts containing Western currency. If true, then the more than 3,000 retired Americans living in Poland and collecting Social Security could be affected. On Monday in Zurich, a multinational banking task force from 20 countries will meet to talk about Poland's economic crisis. But with Poland sealed off and no Poles to talk to, there may be little to resolve. Liz Trotta, CBS News, London.
In this country, several major oil companies have cut wholesale gasoline prices to cope with the combination of oversupply and a sluggish market. Amoco, Conoco, Exxon, and Marathon all reduced wholesale prices from 1/2 to 1 cent. Lower pump prices are expected within days.
Nowadays, there are all sorts of ways of saving and investing money that help fight inflation. The problem is finding the plan that's most profitable for you, because now you're forced to swim through a maze of confusing options. And you also have to think about the new individual retirement accounts. But there is a way to escape all this confusion. It's by calling or visiting your full-service bank. For professional guidance with your financial future, we've got the answers.
Taste of Sprite joins your celebrations. The taste of Lyman mixes right on holiday occasions. Sprite makes brighter holidays. Lyman is the reason. Sprite goes well so many ways to bring you cheer this season.
It happened during a photo opportunity session with President Reagan today. The kidnapping yesterday of U.S. Army Brigadier General James Dozier by terrorists in Italy came up, and the president's temper rose.
This is, I think, a terrible situation, and it's the most frustrating situation because I would like to be able to stand sometime, I'm sure we all would, and say to the people that do these things, they are cowardly bums. They aren't heroes, or they don't have a cause that justifies what they're doing. They're cowards. They wouldn't have the guts to stand up to anyone individually in any kind of a fair contest. And I think it is, well, I can't say any more than that. Yes, we're doing everything we can.
While Mr. Reagan's words were direct and reflected his anger, the words of Dozier's kidnappers were heard today only indirectly. But as Richard Roth reports from Verona, Italy, their impact was cold and frightening.
So far, callers identifying themselves as members of the Red Brigade have communicated only through the Italian news media, only to say the 50-year-old American general is being held, quote, in a people's prison and will be tried by proletarian justice. NATO officials say Dozier's Verona home was entered by 4 men posing as plumbers. Forcing their way into his apartment, they struck Dozier, bound and gagged his wife, loaded their hostage into a van, and sped away. Neighbors heard sounds of struggle, Mrs. Dozier trying to free herself. Police were called, but the kidnappers' tracks were already cold. NATO spokesman Luciano Dalceggio said there had been no warnings or threats against the general, who was routinely assigned an armed escort.
So when he moved from home to the office and from the office home, is escorted.
But he lived in an unguarded building.
Of course.
Dozier's wife Judith is now staying inside NATO's guarded compound.
Please, I request that everyone put their prayers into what has happened and the safety of Jim and the safety for anybody else that may be caught up in such a situation. Thank you.
Military and police officials tonight offered no motives for the Dozier abduction. Documents may have been taken from the general's home, but NATO officials say no classified papers are missing. The Red Brigade has claimed responsibility for at least 7 assassinations in Italy this year. But up till now, its only attack against Americans has been rhetorical. Richard Roth, CBS News, Verona.
Israel's surprise action annexing the Golan Heights brought a sharp reaction today from President Reagan. The new strategic cooperation agreement with Israel has been put on hold. And State Department correspondent Robert Pierpoint reports that Israel's economy may soon feel the pressure too.
The president's order suspends for the foreseeable future all formal discussions between Israel and the United States on coordinated activities aimed at keeping the Soviet Union out of the Middle East. One senior Reagan administration official called it a very tough step. The reasoning behind it explained by a State Department spokesman.
The Israeli action was taken with no advance notice to us or discussion with us. We are particularly disappointed that the government of Israel took this action just as we were facing a serious political crisis in Poland, and only a few weeks after we had signed a memorandum of understanding on strategic cooperation. With this in mind, the President has instructed Secretaries Weinberger and Haig not to proceed at this time with discussions intended to implement the memorandum of understanding signed on 30th of November of this year.
The administration's action postpones indefinitely planning for joint Israeli-American naval maneuvers in the eastern Mediterranean. It also stops discussions of the purchase by the United States of some $200 million worth of military equipment from Israeli manufacturers, as well as a proposal to allow other nations to buy Israeli-produced military goods using American dollar credits, a potential blow to Israel's faltering economy. A high official here explained that the United States does not really expect Israel to reverse its annexation of the Golan Heights. But the Reagan administration will carefully monitor Israel's general behavior for some time before restoring full military cooperation. Robert Pierpoint, CBS News at the State Department.
Albanian Prime Minister Mehmet Shehu committed suicide today. Albanian radio is quoted tonight as saying the Prime Minister took his life at a moment of nervous distress. No further details were given.
Would like to thank you for taking us into your homes. We wish you all a happy holiday.
Chocolates, a delicious Christmas tradition ever since 1842.
Attorney General Smith asserted today that restrictions on American intelligence activities in recent years have resulted in a flood of enemy agents into this country. Jerry Bowen has that story in Los Angeles.
Attorney General Smith said the president's new order on intelligence activities will enable the United States to combat what he described as increasing espionage and international terrorism. Smith declaring to the Los Angeles World Affairs Council the intelligence community has been understaffed and overregulated for too long.
President Reagan inherited an intelligence community that had been demoralized and debilitated by 6 years of public disclosures, denunciation, and in addition, budgetary limitations.
Smith said one threat comes from hostile intelligence agents entering the country under the guise of diplomats, businessmen, students, and even refugees, the latter primarily from the Soviet Union and Cuba. The Attorney General said the FBI simply can't cope with the numbers of suspected agents.
At one time, the FBI could match suspected hostile intelligence agents in the United States on a one-to-one basis. Now the number of hostile agents has grown so much that our FBI counterintelligence agents are greatly outnumbered.
Smith said that the most serious threat, however, is the threat of international terrorism.
As all of you know from press reports, the threat is real today. Libya's capability of sponsoring an effort to assassinate high U.S. government officials provides a sobering example.
Smith said the Reagan administration's goal is to improve the effectiveness of U.S. intelligence agencies without endangering the rights of Americans, and promised that safeguards will be maintained to ensure those rights while giving freer rein to the intelligence community to operate domestically and abroad. Jerry Bowen, CBS News, Los Angeles.
Back at Attorney General Smith's offices in Washington, Justice Department officials increasingly are doubting the word of that informant who supposedly told them about the alleged Libyan hit squads. The information, you recall, was a major factor in the decision to withdraw American workers from Libya. Fred Graham reports.
Justice Department officials are uneasy because their key informant has continued to progressively add to his story, suggesting possible exaggeration or fabrication. The informant had reportedly been recruited from a Libyan terrorist group by the CIA after it received other reports that Libyan leader Gaddafi might be planning to assassinate American officials. But sources say there may have been a more immediate reason for the decision to withdraw the Americans from Libya.
That was the action of the United States in extraditing to Israel Zaid Abu Ian, an alleged Palestinian terrorist. This is said to have outraged Gaddafi, and U.S. intelligence reportedly received reports about 10 days ago that Libyan leaders were threatening to retaliate by harming Americans or taking them hostage. Today, the Libyan government took an ad in the Washington Post to deny any threat of harm against the Americans in Libya. The ad said Libya will continue to provide for the security, freedom, and safety of the Americans there. Meanwhile, the continuing preoccupation with terrorism affected Washington's most famous traffic directors and ticket givers, the Capitol Hill Police. Yesterday, Congress passed a bill authorizing them to also function as a sort of congressman's secret service, protecting threatened Hill leaders wherever they go in the country. Fred Graham, CBS News, Washington.
The Interior Department said today it will revoke restrictions on motorcraft trips through the Grand Canyon. Under a 1979 decision, motorized traffic on that part of the Colorado River was to be phased out over a 5-year period. But Congress banned money to enforce that policy, and the Park Service spokesman said today's decision conformed to the congressional mandate. In another move, sure to anger conservationists, the Interior Department issued final regulations permitting hard rock mining as well as oil and gas drilling in 5 national recreation areas. A rare accident occurred just before dawn today near Harlan, Kentucky, in the heart of coal mine country. The earth beneath sludge ponds collapsed. Mud, slate, old timber, all sorts of debris poured down a hill and then rolled over a small community. 3 homes were demolished. A woman was killed. The other residents reached high ground safely. The pond is on land owned by Eastover Mining Company. The charred, scarred Massachusetts manufacturing city of Lynn had another big fire today, a 9-alarm blaze in a plastics factory. It sent up clouds of black smoke which drifted over the downtown district, leveled just 3 weeks ago by an $80 million fire. 20 persons were at work in the plant today, but all of them apparently escaped unhurt. Officials have not said whether they suspect arson, as in the earlier blaze.
I wonder if it's a person. C-A-L, verb, to undergo a miraculous transformation. From the Greek kalos, beautiful, that's the cow. And from the Latin vincere, to conquer, that's the vin. Calvin, beautiful conqueror. So that's what happened to me. I've been Calvinized.
Tops and jeans like Calvin Klein.
Over 100 years ago at the International Flower Fair, America's #1 flower won its name, gold medal. Taste 100 years of baking success.
Taste the success of 100 years. Taste the success of joyful tears. Taste the success of baking pride and open wide. Taste the success of 100 years. Feel the confidence of all those years. Gold medal
For your baking success.
Katie Beckett went home in time for Christmas today. You can't appreciate how big a present that is for Katie and her family until you see Eric Ingberg's report from Cedar Rapids, Iowa.
Katie, we're not going to be here tomorrow, honey, when you go home, so we want to say bye-bye.
Fine, blow him a big one. Blow him a big kiss.
Katie Beckett has been growing up here in the intensive care unit of a hospital. For most of her 3.5 years, the hospital has been her home and her playground as she recovered from a disease which damaged the nerves that control her breathing.
Oh, go fish.
She looks healthy, and her doctors say she is, except for a speech problem and help in breathing she needs from a machine when she sleeps.
We need you to cough that stuff out, Pumpkin.
Katie's parents have learned to run the machine, and they wanted her home. But the government said they would lose their Medicaid benefits if she left the hospital. It's a rule. Katie seems stuck, until she found a new friend who thought the rule was dumb.
We just recently received word of a little girl who has spent most of her life in a hospital.
Help from the boss doesn't hurt either.
No. No, it's kind of nice to have somebody with a little clout in your corner.
This morning, 200 people who have cared for Katie gathered in the St. Luke's Hospital cafeteria to say goodbye to their friend, who sometimes seemed oblivious to her new celebrity status. She will be coming for weekly therapy at the hospital, but she doesn't live here anymore.
For all the times you stood by us and given us the help that we needed. Thank you.
I'll see you later. You're part of her family.
You bet. A dolly. Oh.
There were gifts, including a doll from the Reagans, and a phone call, too, from the First Lady.
We're going to be here with our family,
and we'll be home with ours.
Then, finally, home.
Merry Christmas.
And that's the CBS Evening News for this Friday. Bob Schieffer will be here tomorrow. Dan Rather reporting from New York, hoping you have a good weekend.
Guess what I've got in here?
What?
A piece of the sun.
No wonder I can't get a tan.
It's Polaroid's new sun camera, a new system that can turn bad light into good pictures. Here, go ahead, take my picture.
You know it'll be dark.
Nope, you've never been so sure of an instant picture.
Great, but doesn't this cost a lot?
No, but wasting film in bad light does. Besides, you never buy flash or extra batteries.
The sun looks the same. Where'd they take the piece from?
The other side.
You've never been so sure.
If your morning shave has turned into a nightmare, gotcha. Wake up to the exclusive twin-action Norelco Rotatract razor. Inside, 3 floating heads. Twin-action grips and raises hair up, then razors hair off, closer than ever. For twin-blade closeness without a nick or cut, the twin-action Norelco Rotatract razor, cord or rechargeable. Because for close shaves,
there's no action like twin action.
From around the world and from CBS News headquarters in New York, this has been the CBS Evening News with Dan Rather.
Tomorrow, the New York Giants are fighting for a shot at the playoffs when they face the Dallas Cowboys. It's a must-win for New York. The action starts with the NFL today at noon Eastern on CBS Sports.
This is CBS.
Charges are